Hello and welcome back to the 4am report. This week, I'm going to round up the episode arc that we did about the trends that really dug deep roots into 2021 and took a great deal of our mind space. And much of the sort of information we have about which trends were out there and what was happening is because of our weekly sort of live roundup, which we co-host with various industry leaders on what's happening in the marketing news and what we can learn from it. So through doing that every week on Thursday, we uncovered some stuff that came over and over again. And among those are NFTs. So NFTs, for the uninitiated, is non-fungible tokens, which is a kind of asset, a cryptocurrency value is assigned to it. It's an asset that you own in the digital space. And broadly, there are a couple of things that people need to know. One is that there's an origin story that comes with an NFT, which means that it belongs to you. Like you can clearly trace who the thing belongs to via blockchain. And therefore, it has huge implications for intellectual property and for creators. So there's been a few big creative-led companies like Adobe who've put in the button convert to an NFT so that creators, as they're working on these platforms, can start to explore that. So I think that's a very, very important thing to think about. It goes beyond just like buying something and having a gimmicky sort of like piece of something that you own for collector value. But into intellectual property. So that's the first thing that I want you to think about as you listen to some more of this episode. Now, the second part is, even if you're not in the creative industries and that is not something that you want to directly think about right away, here's the other thing to think about, which is much more universal. Educate yourself. Like if you are sort of in a place where you're saying to yourself, like, this is not applicable, it's just a fad, it's going to go away. I assure you it is not. So whether or not you are getting into the world of NFTs, educate yourself, because there's room to get involved in discussions. There's room to get into collaborations. There's room to sort of see how it works for your industry and be among the early adopters. So educate yourself. So 2 points for you there as you go into listening to some clips from the sort of Thirst Awards gala that we had. We had 6 industry leaders join us to discuss it, listen to some of their thoughts on the subject. Enjoy.
Welcome to the 4am report. Let's face it, we all have to market. Large or little, it's harder than ever to stand out in a cluttered space of one-size-fits-all and copycat marketing moves. Welcome to the 4am report, a micro-podcast that brings you valuable conversations with people on the marketing dilemmas keeping them up at night. Here are your hosts, contrarian marketers and creative clutter cutters, Susan Diaz and Will Lamont.
Okay, let's move on to the last of our categories, which is the phenomenon or movement of 2021. Again, a lot of idle time. So a lot of things that would be sort of a passing moment in the before times really sort of escalated into a movement or moment to remember. So what do you think, Martin?
I think a lot of digital moments, right? Because we weren't able to get out very much certainly in the first part of 2020. We can start to hopefully go out more now that we're all vaccinated and things like that. We have to be careful, but a lot of digital and hype really about things that captured our attention. Now the question is, are they going to be able to sustain themselves as we go ahead?
Absolutely.
Wow. Lots of great nominees. on there. TikTok, which certainly was a sensation, that's for sure. But the winner is a word I love to say, non-fungible token, because it's such a great word. Nobody knows what they are. We have no idea. I actually was thinking I want to make a fungible token to kind of go up against the non-fungible tokens, but they seem to have really caught on. A lot of talk about how they're being used in the metaverse. And I haven't bought one yet. Have you, Rohini?
I have not. And my partner, who's an architect, has promised to create one. So that's my nest egg plan. But I have seen no makings of this. And I saw that now Stella Artois is using a non-fungible token as a non-fungible tip source to actually support the hospitality industry, which is great. I mean, I think if we've done this amazing, digital creatives have really brought this new concept to life, and now it's actually being used for good, which is wonderful.
Yeah, and it feels like it's explained blockchain to me in a way, or it's helped me understand blockchain on a whole other level, because while it's non-tangible, it's tangible. It's one of those weird ideas. But I understand that, and you start to see, okay, as we do enter the metaverse, as it develops with our avatars, and we're buying things, non-fungible tokens are a great way to prove that we own what we own, or our avatars own what they own. But I'm not crazy about the idea of buying a piece of non-fungible art. Like Biz Stone's first tweet sold for what, $3.7 million or something like that. He gave it to charity, but I can look it up. I don't need to own that.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. It's sort of like art, isn't it? In some ways, the value is in the eye of the beholder. And there's you can't take that to the bank, but there you go.
Yeah. What I was going to say, something that of two of those phenomenons colliding, and I totally dismissed them last year. It's funny. I went on Clubhouse for the first time last March, where I entered a room where Lindsay Lohan was hosting a chat about NFTs. And I was like, this is messed up. And then here we are, this much later, and NFTs are everywhere. Very interesting.
Mohit, thoughts on NFTs winning this?
So I know quite a bit about this. I minted an NFT. I own one. I've gone through it with a traditional artist. I've done it with a musician. It's fascinating, but it's also not. It's not for everybody yet, because there are many ways. So there are two layers, right? There's the education side, where you've got to learn how to best use what you're building. And then there's the business side, where you've got to learn how blockchain and crypto works, and why anybody that puts actual factual dollar amount to anything is kind of full of shit at this point, right? Nothing is worth something until something is worth something, right? So it's but it's been fascinating to follow. And on the social audio stuff, yes, I agree, Clubhouse has, but Clubhouse has also made two features that has made the engagement be a little bit weird. And that is, one, they're letting you record rooms now, and that's caused some people to be a little less free in that social audio environment. And Twitter Spaces is now giving you the ability to do ticketed spaces. So now you can privatize your audience. So those two forces are really opposite in what social audio was trying to sort of create for people, which was this everybody come in and we can all talk about like-minded things. So it'll be interesting to see which one ends up being what for what type of business. Anyway, that's my report. Click, like, subscribe, and
very good.
Andrea, talk to us about some of the intellectual property things surrounding this. It's especially with things like NFT, that's the big draw, isn't it, for artists? So clue us in on what you think there.
Oh my goodness. It's a wild, wild west, right? And this is the issue. The law doesn't really keep up with all that's going on in the metaverse and NFT. So I'm really looking forward to what happens as people start having disputes around this, right? How are you able to actually show ownership? What's going to happen if there are disputes? And as we move more and more into the metaverse and have your avatars, it's just going to be a fascinating new world where I think a lot of the traditional structures or the traditional ways that law responds to disputes are not going to work in this new world. So I'm really excited to see what happens.
That's really great. Darian, thoughts?
Yeah, I come from the opposite side where I'm like, I feel like the internet was originally designed for the democratization of everything, like shared information, and those that couldn't afford things, you had access to all this information. I feel like the big tech folks in Silicon Valley created NFTs and Clubhouse. It's kind of like with their wealth and their idea of being able to control things, they attempted Clubhouse to control things and bottleneck things and make it this elitist system. Like you have to get an invitation, and at first it was only for the iPhone, where I feel like there's enough people, there's enough rallying cries of humans to say, no, the internet's not for that. The internet is for freedom and expression and sharing and access and liberty. And so I'm so glad that Clubhouse didn't survive, and I don't think it will survive because there's enough humans that get the fact that it's about equal access, not about elitism.
It's an interesting perspective, yeah.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're losing sleep over a marketing-related problem, let us know. Drop us a line at cp.digital. Sweet dreams. Well, hopefully.